Good morning, everyone. My name is Tom Williamson. I'm from ERSIM, the European Research Consortium for Information and Mathematics, and I'm the project coordinator of Your India Spirit. What we're going to do this morning is I'll give you a brief outline of the origins, the background of this project, some brief background on Your India cooperation in ICT. I'll take you through the aims and the results of the project, and then we'll have some presentations from some of our experts on collaboration between the European Union and India in ICT. So it's been 10 years now since the signing of a cooperation agreement in science and technology between the European Union and India, and since then collaboration has gone from strength to strength. In 2004 at the EU-India Forum, ICTs were recognised as crucial enablers of societal and economic growth. In 2007, at the EU-India Ministerial Science Conference, there were two key questions for the delegates. They were, what are the key shared societal and economic challenges between the EU and India, and how can ICTs help to address and overcome them? And secondly, how can we build closer collaborative ties between the two areas? And the timing of this Ministerial Science Conference in 2007 was not coincidental. 2007 marked the beginning of the 7th Framework Programme for Research and Technological Development. In European Commission terminology, that's known as FP7. And it's an extremely well-funded and wide-ranging scientific programme covering all areas of research and technological development within Europe.
Tom?
Yes? Oh, very good. Thank you, Ashok. Within that framework programme, I beg your pardon, within its previous iteration, which was known as FP6, that ran between 2002 and 2006, there were about 100 Indian research institutions that took part in various European Commission funded projects, collaborative projects in all areas of science and technology. Thus far in FP7, there have been about 140 Indian researchers, institutions and so on taking part. And under FP7, the international cooperation element has been much strengthened, and India was identified specifically as an international partner cooperation country, so one that was specifically targeted for cooperation in S&T with the European Union. Finally, there are what are known as joint working groups, meetings between the DOT and the European Commission for forming policy initiatives for collaboration between the two. There have been 6 of these so far, and the last one was held in 2009. We're hopeful that one is going to be held in early 2012, and that's where this project, Your India Spirit, comes in. So very briefly, these are the project origins and aims. We're essentially trying to formulate policy formulation. We're trying to identify collaborative areas of research and the frameworks to put those areas of research into play between the European Union and India. And the way that we're doing that is through these 4 points. First of all, we're trying to analyse the state of play, the state of the art within Indian ICT research, trying to identify the areas in which Indian ICT research is pushing ahead, what are the big priority areas within the Indian ICT sector, and then matching that to the European priorities. The way that we've done that obviously is through building on previous projects within FP7, projects like Monsoon, Euro India. It's through the expertise within our consortium, and it's also through stakeholder interaction at events such as this, through our online forum and so on and so forth. It's within our remit also to generally promote Euro-India collaboration in ICT, and we've done that again through events like this and through our online forum. And finally, we've come up with a set of recommendations which you can see in the booklet that's around the table. And these are our bread and butter. These are the things that we will recommend to the joint working group at its next sitting. And it's our hope that they will form the basis of future EU-Indian collaboration within the ICT sector. Okay? These are the project partners as Rajeshri laid out. From Europe, ERSIM, represented by myself. Infra Technologies, represented by Mr. Ashok Kar. back, thank you, and Trust IT from Italy. And the Indian partners, FICCI, ASCII and CSDMS are hosts today, chosen not only for their ability to propagate policy formulation, but also to engage stakeholders, to organise events and to generally disseminate the work of the project. Now, I'd like to introduce our methodology. In terms of forming these recommendations, the key was the participation of our working group experts. As you can see, 18 renowned ICT experts, split equally between the European Union and India, were engaged for this project. We're joined by a few of them today. James Clark, who moderated the previous session, Mr. Munib Mekilef from Europe, and Mr. Neeraj Shuri, who is not in the room at the moment, but is here. Over the past 2 years of the project, we've had 4 face-to-face meetings comprising of all these experts. We've had various online discussions. They've been moderated by the project consortium, and they've been aimed at identifying the key areas for collaborative research between the 2 areas, and the discussions have been very wide-ranging and have been diluted into the recommendations that you see in the booklet in front of you. As I say, they've come into 6 key areas and also a set of what are known as horizontal recommendations, or a framework for actually funding those research priorities. So I'll take you through them very, very briefly at a high level. And I'll give you an idea of why the experts thought that in particular these were key areas for EU-India collaboration. What were the specific benefits accruing to both sides? The first of which is future networks. You can see the highlighted areas there. I suppose the key element from an EU-India collaboration point of view was, as you're all very well aware, the rollout of broadband within the Indian subcontinent is something that's gathering immense pace at the moment. From a European perspective, obviously, it's something that's been already achieved, but there are huge learning experiences that we can gain from the Indian context in terms of low-cost rollout of networks, wireless networks, and also resilience of those networks in a demanding environment. The second area identified, trustworthy ICT. Obviously, I'll touch on a lot of topics that were covered in the previous session with Jim. I suppose one of the key areas I know was also touched on in the previous session was, and it's something that wouldn't have been immediately obvious to a European Union observer of these things, was the need to dispel any concerns about imported hardware, malware, and so on and so forth. And it's something that's going to take on an increasing level of importance as we go on. The sector of cloud computing, obviously, it's a very hot topic. It's very high visibility and so on, and it's obviously something that the working group experts, I beg your pardon, wanted to highlight. Within that sector, you can see the highlighted areas there, and within the booklet, the key concern, I think, from our point of view, was the question of efficiency, energy efficiency, and low cost, especially given the potential scale of any Indian rollout, large-scale Indian rollout of cloud computing, and the benefits that would accrue to the incredibly populous area that we have here. The fourth area was that of networked media and future internet, split into 4 key categories here: e-government, e-education, e-inclusion, and e-tourism. Obviously very wide-ranging applications of this particular area, but one thing that was particularly striking for our experts was the incredible ubiquity of mobile devices within India, and the need to adapt mobile devices and accessibility for those mobile devices within these particular areas in order to reap the full benefits in network media and future internet. The fifth area was that of e-inclusion. You can see the highlighted areas there. It's obvious to say that the constituency of people at risk from wider societal exclusion in both EU and India is quite significant. You're talking about demographics such as the elderly, ICT illiterate, the disabled, and so on and so forth. And it was a key societal concern for our experts to identify how ICT could address these concerns and what the collaborative benefits would be for both sides. Final area, and this is, I suppose, something of a catch-all, is the area of ICT for public services. You can see the headline areas there, but what we looked at especially was the way in which ICT can facilitate interaction with the populace at large, the way in which it can allow you to test policy initiatives and measure their impact on a wider scale in advance of their wider introduction. And it's something that's not really easy from an Indian perspective in the current context, and also something from the European side which we can gain a lot from in terms of test cases and so on and so forth. So those are the 6 kind of key technological, what we called umbrella themes, running through the recommendations that we've put into the booklet here. What we've also done is set out what are known as the horizontal measures. So as I said, a framework for actually putting these priority areas to the top of the agenda and allowing them to be funded and prioritised between the EU and India. There are 2 main strands, the first of which is a dedicated multi-year EU-India bilateral ICT research programme. And that kind of comes in, it's manifested in 2 ways, according to our recommendations. The first of which, in the short term, is just a set of joint calls for research proposals over some key research areas. Obviously, we're hoping that those key research areas will be the ones that we've recommended so comprehensively in our final document. In the long term, we would hope that that would evolve into a full joint research programme over a 5-year period, adequately funded from both sides and involving the cream of both European and Indian ICT researchers. The second strand of our horizontal measures, the ones that we're recommending, are what are known as Indian technology platforms. This is based on a European model, an equivalent, what are known as European technology platforms. And these are industry and academia-led fora in specific ICT strands and wider science and technology areas. The function of these fora is to identify and kind of advance ICT research priorities from an industry kind of ground-up basis. They're facilitated by, but not dictated to, by the European Commission in some cases, but not in most. There is European Commission funding. It's our belief that by replicating this in India, you could see a greater, quicker and more efficient matching of the priorities from an industry and academia level, and also bringing the key players from each side together for quicker and, as I say, more efficient collaboration within the framework that we've identified. So thank you very much for your attention. That's a very much a whistle-stop tour of what we've done in the programme so far. For the next while, I'm going to invite 2 of our experts to speak. First of all, Jim Clark, from the European perspective, his experiences of the working groups and his thoughts on EU-India collaboration. Then Ashok Kaur will add his thoughts from an Indian side, and then we'll open up the floor to a few questions. So thank you for your attention.